Hey guys, Kev here, and I have a quick review to do for you of the Giantmouse Ace Riv. So this knife is on loan from my good buddy Jake over at Bearded Gear. I appreciate you sending this out to me, Jake. I actually owned one of these before in the all titanium variant, and I went ahead and sold it just because I wasn't carrying it. It's a very kind of righty biased knife in a lot of ways. And I was just trying to free up funds for something, but I kept getting requests to do a disassembly of it. And when I first had it, I never did the full review at the end, and I didn't do a disassembly. So I went ahead and asked Jake if I could check his out, and he was gracious enough to send it to me and let me take it apart, which I did, and I added skiff bearings to it, which I will have to say make it much smoother. Not necessarily like drop shutty or anything, but you can see there it's very smooth now. It's just a little bit better, which is what I noticed adding those types of bearings. It just gives your knife 10-15% better feel on smoothness, lateral strength, that kind of stuff. But anyway, I also want to note on the construction, the titanium one I had, when I took that one apart, not on camera, but when I took it apart, because it was all titanium, you just had the pivot screw and I guess one or two kind of like body screws back here, and then the whole top scale would just come off. You do your business, drop it back on, boom, 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 Bob's your uncle, right? On this knife, because it has this micarta side, there's actually another liner inside of there. So first you take all these off, this micarta scale comes off, and then you have another titanium liner in there you have to take screws out to get off as well. So there's a little more to it when you have this version. So I just wanted to point that out. That's a bit of a difference there. It did come in this micarta. It came in the full titanium with a brass backspacer, and then it came in a brass scale version with a titanium backspacer like this. So cool variants. They went for $185 for this one, $200 for titanium, and $210 for brass, I believe was the pricing. They sold directly from Giantmouse Knives, and then I believe they also went to a few retailers like River's Edge Cutlery and maybe Knife Joy or DLT or something like that. So yeah, that is kind of a quick background, and let's get into it, guys. Aesthetically here, this knife is okay. I like knives with holes in them. I like smaller knives, but this guy just kind of looks weird to me. Just looks like a goofy bird or something with this beak pointing down, because it's kind of a sheep's footy blade type thing going on. I like the micarta actually more than I thought I would. When I got the titanium one, I did that because, well, one, these were sold out because everybody wants to spend $185 instead of $200. But two, I just like full titanium builds and that kind of thing. But I do have to say, I think this micarta variant is the best looking one out of the bunch. But overall, it's just not that great aesthetically because it has these two kind of like choils, which obviously are very necessary, but doesn't go towards the aesthetic. And I don't think that's what Voxnez was going for. This is obviously a Giantmouse knife, which is a collaboration between Jesper Voxnez and Jens Anso, two Danish designers. This is definitely, in my opinion, a Voxnez design, but I believe Anso did collaborate on it. It is an LMAX steel, by the way. It has this stonewash on it. Seems like a light stonewash. Looks pretty cool. I think the titanium one had a belt satin, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. These are manufactured by Riot, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that, out of China. So for the price and the manufacturing, that's pretty good, but I'll get to that. So yeah, aesthetically, not my favorite. Ergonomically, it's a freaking dream, guys. For such a tiny knife, like I just reviewed the little native, and man, I also did a battle video with those two knives to see which was better. And they are both so good ergonomically for these tiny knives. But the little native is just a little bit better, I think, because you don't have this clip here, because you can reverse it. And this choil is a little bit like, I don't know, it's a little bitey, I think. It's the best way for me to explain it, bitey. But overall, this is an absolute dream for such a tiny knife. You also don't have a flipper tab on the little native to get in your way, and it kind of like locks you into this choil that I don't like that much. But overall, it's like, you know, a 9 out of 10 in ergos, like really good for such a tiny knife, which is awesome for people who are in areas where you need a smaller knife. You know, legally you can't carry anything over 3 inches, blah, blah, blah. This is really good for that because you have such a good grip, even if you have a large hand, and you get so much control of this blade, it's insane. So ergonomics are absolutely fantastic on this knife. Action. So this is interesting. Right-handed, it's actually kind of hard to get the flipper because of the frame lock. I still don't understand why they went with a frame lock here. I think they should have went with a liner lock. But maybe cost or trying to be different or keeping it thin. I don't know. This should have been a liner lock, in my opinion. It just would have been better. Right-handed, you end up on this lock bar a lot, and then it locks the flipper up, and you just can't get it open. I mean, you watch Jake's review on it, or First Impressions. There's one video where he literally just cannot open it. And that's why. But left-handed, because of the clip here, you kind of just rest your finger right near the clip or over here, and I can get it every time. I almost never lock it up. My finger kind of lands up here near the pivot because it's so small, and it just works great left-handed for the flipper. Now, for the middle finger flip, right-handed, it is a dream, guys. This thing, middle finger flicks like a boss right-handed. Left-handed with the flick, now you got to be careful because your thumb wants to land on the lock bar, and it's a righty frame lock, remember? So you got to kind of put your thumb up here on the pivot, angle everything right. You don't have a clip to hang on to, and you got to just get it right. And occasionally it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Normally, if I just take it out of pocket and go like this, it works. There. So it's not like it's terrible, but you'll have moments where you're just flicking it like 3 times and the detent's all locked up, and then you're like, okay, and then you get it. That was one of the reasons I sold it, because it just, I don't want to work for my deployment, right? Like, I just want it to operate. I want it to be natural. And when that doesn't happen, I eventually, no matter how cool the knife is, I eventually get pissed and I sell it. It's just not going to get carried because of that. But yeah, so that's the middle finger flick, great right-handed. The thumb flick is fine right-handed, mostly. You know, you just give it the flick and you're good to go. I'll throw in the slow roll with that. This is a little harder because now you got to kind of get a different grip, and getting it without hitting the lock bar, I can't even do it. Left-handed, the thumb flick is fine as well. I don't think I had any issues with the lock bar. Again, I usually middle finger flick or use the flipper on this, but it does work. Now, the slow roll left-handed is easier because you don't have that lock bar to contend with. You can just put your hand wherever you want, get in there, boom, good to go. Not that that really means anything to anybody. With the skiff bearings, again, it drops pretty good, and then a couple shakes, and it's down. No blade play in any direction. You get more lateral strength with the skiffs. It was pretty good with the stock bearings from Riot. They do a good job, but I just want to note that. So action is pretty much really good with some caveats because of the lock bar, right? And that's kind of a your mileage will vary situation. All right, so let's move on to carry. You have this deep carry clip, wire clip, that goes, most of the way back. There's a little bit sticking out, but doesn't bother me in the least. Wire clips are always good. They don't get caught on stuff. They usually have great retention. They go in and out of pocket well. They're great. When I had this knife, I actually did not mind that there was not a reversible clip. And the reason is, this is a fifth pocket knife. This is a knife that goes into that fifth pocket, which is on your right side. So you're carrying it righty. So therefore, I don't really care if it's, has a reversible clip or not. I'm either going to carry it over there or I'm going to carry it in my back left pocket because it's like a smaller secondary type knife. I'm never going to put this as my main knife in my front left pocket, so I don't need a reversible clip on this specific knife. There's another knife just like that. This Spyderco Chaparral right here does have a reversible clip, but I leave it on the right side because I only ever carry it in my fifth pocket or in my back left pocket. So there's really no need to reverse the clip. If you want a quick comparison of these two, it's a little bit bigger than the Chaparral, which is, by the way, one of my favorite Spydercos. And that Spyderco Chaparral blade is absolutely thin as balls. This one is thin, just not as thin. So, love the Chaparral, guys. That thing is stuck around. I do want to mention that this has a crown spine, which is kind of a Giantmouse thing. I used to think it was because they had their knives made in Italy, but I think it's just a Voxnez type thing. He likes crowned spines. Crowned spines? Yeah. And then you have the jimping like halfway up here. Pretty standard Vox stuff, but I don't know if I mentioned it. Lands perfectly. Really like that. All right, so we covered carry, cutting. Guys, this thing is fantastic at cutting. It has a nice thin edge on it. Full flat grind. LMAX blade steel. Just a dream, guys. You have so much control. I cut some paper. The one I had, I didn't really use this one that much. I think I just cut out a label or two and opened a package. But I had one for like a month, and I used the shit out of it because it was actually like a good, like that's why I like the Chaparral, because I can carry that. I don't worry about abusing it or anything. It's very thin and slicey, so it's good for letter opening and packages and everything. It also is fantastic at cutting through fruit like apples. The only downside is it's not that long. But usually for most of the things I do, this size blade is just fine. So yeah, cutting is great. So I think that covers all the main, sounds. So it's pretty tactile. It has good sounds. Not great. The titanium one definitely sounded better. It had more of a clang or a ting when it came out and close. But this is still really good. I do enjoy the sounds of it. So it's kind of like in the middle. It's not a problem, and it's not, really helping anything either. Cool. Value. So, guys, it might be small, but $185 for a Riot-made knife with LMAX and titanium and micarta. Sign me up all day, every day, twice on fucking Sunday, guys. This is a good price. It's a good value. I don't care how small it is. I'm going to use it just like I would use a bigger knife. Yeah, it's less material, and maybe that's why it's $185 instead of $250, right? I don't know. But I think that's a great price for this knife. The titanium one for $200, that's fine too. I would never buy a brass one, but $210, whatever. I just don't care about brass. Not a patina guy. I actually think it's kind of gross. And it's heavy and it's ugly. I don't know. I just don't understand brass and copper, why people love them. But to each their own, right? So value is also, I would call it a home run, guys. This thing checks a lot of boxes. Recommendations. So when I first bought this knife, or bought the one I had, I really thought I was just buying it. I was going to hate it because it has a righty frame lock, and then I would sell it, right? And I did ultimately sell it. But I can recommend it to anybody, especially righties, but even lefties. I think this is worth giving a shot if you've thought about it and you just are worried that it being right-handed frame lock would be an issue. And it doesn't have a reversible clip, right? But the fact that it's so small and is a fifth pocket knife, you don't really need the reversible clip, right? And then it actually does surprisingly function pretty well left-handed. I can do that middle finger flick reliably if I carry this for a day. I can do the flip all day, no problem. You can do the thumb flick left-handed. It's actually really good lefty, guys. Left ability scale on this guy, I would give it like a 6. I think I said it in the battle video, and I don't even know what I said it. But right at this moment, it's a 6, okay? So don't call me out. Yeah, I just really love this knife, guys. It is a fantastic offering from Giantmouse. I think the Ace Riv was a huge success. Having this one makes me want one again. So I think when they come out, I'll get another one in micarta. Maybe they'll do a run in like natural micarta and a satin blade. I'd be all over that. Kind of like they did with the Grand. So this is a really good knife, guys. And again, really appreciate Jake for sending it my way. Thanks, buddy. And I love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic day. And I will catch you later.